So I started out at 8 ounces of mushrooms, but there's probably about a half an ounce of mushrooms at my feet at the moment. So all of those that are left go into our meatballs. Today on the menu, turkey meatballs with lemon basil rice. This dinner is perfect for a weeknight. It comes together all in one pot, it's packed with protein, nutritious, and really well balanced. So if you, like me, are often looking for weeknight meals that don't leave me with a whole bunch of dishes to do, let's give it a taste. Tonight's dinner might just be for you. This is one of those one-pot meals that's actually really impressive and feels like it took all day. The trick is to add flavor at every step. So we're gonna start by browning off some very flavorful meatballs. Then we'll turn our attention to cooking some very flavorful rice, and we'll finish the meatballs cooking with that rice. We'll top with some herbs and bright flavors, and voila, dinner is on the table in like 30 minutes. You'll need a wide-bottomed pan or skillet that has a tight-fitting lid that can cook the meatballs and the rice on the stove. But if you don't have something that's this wide, don't let that stop you from making this recipe. You can do the meatballs in a couple of different shifts. As far as ingredients today, this is one of those sneaky one-pot meals that you can actually bulk up significantly with a whole bunch of different vegetables. Today I'm using mushrooms and spinach, but there's all sorts of things that you could add here, both to the meatballs and to the rice. If you wanted to either increase the number of vegetables you're eating with your meal or even disguise some of them, this is a great one for that. Lots of things will work here, so let your imagination be the guide. I'm using 2 pounds of turkey today, which should feed about 6 people, but if you want to scale back or scale up, this recipe is great for that. In fact, I sometimes make the meatballs by themselves for meal prep. They make a great little protein-packed snack on the go. Okay, so enough of my yammering. Let's get started making our meatballs. Just a really quick word on tools. I have a knife, a microplane to zest our lemon, and then an ice cream scoop. This is about the size of meatball that I like to make, but you can make them smaller or bigger if you like. It's completely up to you and your own personal preference. For me, this is the right size. It's a couple bites. So we're gonna add some mushrooms directly to the meatballs, and I'm gonna really finely process through them so they're not obvious chunks of mushrooms in our meatballs. I find that this just really bulks up the meatball and gives me some more volume in this dish, makes it a little bit more affordable to feed a few more people. We're also gonna add some garlic, salt, pepper, a little bit of Worcestershire, some red pepper flake, if you like it with a little bit of a kick. And then the star of the show of these meatballs, and really this whole dish, is the basil and the lemon. So in the meatballs, we're gonna include lemon zest and juice, as well as a whole bunch of chopped basil. And then in the rice, we're gonna replicate those flavors with some more chopped basil and some lemon wheels. So I'm just gonna continue processing through these mushrooms. Okay, this looks processed enough for me. I like these really small so that they just kind of meld into the background of the meatballs. It does take a little bit of work, but after just a couple minutes, they're ready to go in. So I started out at 8 ounces of mushrooms, but there's probably about a half an ounce of mushrooms at my feet at the moment. So all of those that are left go into our meatballs. A couple tablespoons of garlic, a few solid tablespoons of, this is kind of a chiffonade, minced basil, a full cup of breadcrumbs. I'm using panko breadcrumbs, 2 eggs, the zest of a lemon. I'm just gonna zest it right in. And of course, when I'm zesting, the goal is just to get the yellow and not too much of the white. The most satisfying part about working with a microplane is cleaning the back off. So that is the zest of a lemon going in, and then just the juice of that same lemon. Next, a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. This just kind of deepens the flavor of the turkey. Turkey is a very lean meat, sometimes can be a little bit less flavorful than something with more fat. So adding something like Worcestershire sauce will bump the flavor up a little bit. So I'm going for a couple tablespoons here. Perfect. Red pepper flake. It's like a palmful, not a ton. We're gonna put some also in the rice. Pepper. And then a couple big pinches of salt. This is 2 pounds of meat, so it can stand a little bit of salt. Now we mix this together and form our meatballs. When I'm making something like meatballs or a hamburger patty, my goal is to not overmix the meat or really to compress it down completely. I find that that changes the texture of the meatball, and they're just a little bit nicer when you've gone easy on the mixing. So I like to get in with my hands and mix the spices and herbs together as much as I can, and then get in with the meat without going way overboard in how long it takes me to mix it up. You can already smell that basil, that lemon. It smells really good. Okay, time to form. So again, I'm just gonna use an ice cream scoop and do kind of a lightly pack, put it in my hands, roll together on the plate. So you can make these meatballs really kind of whatever size that you like. Because they're browning first and then cooking with the rice, which is gonna cook for like 20 minutes, this recipe can stand a little bit of a bigger meatball, meaning they will cook through in the time that it takes to cook the rice. Last meatball. And if you use the size scoop that I use, you'll get about 20 meatballs. Okay, hand wash time again. Everything else happens over the stove. So we're gonna get over there, start browning our meatballs, and finish this dinner up. All right, over a medium-high heat, I'm gonna get a couple tablespoons of avocado oil heating up in the pan. Just enough to cover the bottom. So all we're trying to do is get them a little bit brown on the outside and develop some of that flavor. The other things I have over at the stove are about 1.5 cups of rice, 3 cups of water, and a couple spoonfuls of better than bouillon. I didn't have any chicken or beef stock in my cabinet, but I do like to use 3 to 3.5 cups of stock to cook the rice in this meal, and better than bouillon is a great way to make stock at home. So I'm just looking for this oil to get hot so that it starts to sizzle when I put our meatballs in. The only other things I have on the stove are a splatter guard. This can get kind of messy since we're basically frying the meatballs, and then a tight fitting lid, and we're gonna use this when we start cooking the rice. So I'm gonna get our meatballs in this pan. Okay, I am gonna do 2 shifts. I have about 5 left over, that's no problem. So if you try to move these meatballs before they're ready to move, chances are that they will break, which is no big deal. If some of them break a little bit, all of that just goes into the rice and makes more flavorful rice. So I'm just gonna give my hands a wash, let these cook for a couple minutes on the side, and come back to you when I'm ready to flip them. I'm gonna move this very hot pan off the heat for a second. Pull these meatballs out. I'm gonna add 1 onion. Goes right in. Saute the onion in that fat, scraping up some of those brown bits on the bottom of the pan. It's really good flavor. Just cooking for a couple minutes, trying to get up some of that flavor from the bottom of the pan. Okay, so we're over like medium-low heat here, and controversially, when I cook with better than bouillon in an application like this, I actually like to cook the better than bouillon a little bit in the oil. So I put the couple teaspoons that I have right in without the water. Just cook it a little bit. I find that it kind of blooms the flavor a little bit, almost like if you're blooming spices. But if you'd rather mix it in with your water, that works too. Okay, rice is gonna go in now. And I'm just trying to get that rice toasted just a little bit, coated in that fat that's left over, coated in some of that better than bouillon. Just developing flavor at every step here. So the rice has been browning for maybe a minute. And I'm gonna add in the water. I'm starting with 3 cups of water. So this is 3 cups of water to 1.5 cups of rice, and I'm actually gonna bump the heat back up. We wanna bring this up to a boil. And then we're gonna turn it down to a simmer, nestle our meatballs back in, cover it, and let it cook for like 18 to 20 minutes until the rice is cooked. I'm gonna check it a couple times during that process just to make sure we've got the right amount of water, and then I'll show you how we finish it off at the end. Okay, timer went off. Time to check and see if our rice is done. Looking great. That's about perfect. So let's taste the rice and see if it's cooked. We're cooked. Okay, so heat goes off. I'm gonna wilt in some spinach. This is a little bit of a dance because you have to kind of arrange it around the meatballs when it's wilted. But I like that it adds some color and adds a little additional flavor and more nutritional value. So all I do is top with spinach, put that lid back on, let it wilt down just for a couple minutes here on the stove. And when it's wilted, I'll meet you back over at the bench to finish with our last flavorings and toppings. We're almost ready to eat. Okay, just a couple more steps. Okay, so on the bench, I have some lemons that I've sliced into rings that I'm just gonna kind of nestle in. So this is both for flavor, but also for presentation. I really like to kind of be obvious about what's in the dish, and since we went for lemon basil, we can definitely do some lemons on top. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of basil as well. Little bit of red pepper flake. You can omit this if you don't like things spicy. Last but not least, and this is kind of a nice to have, but I really enjoy just a tiny little bit of Parmesan cheese. So this is about 4 ounces of cheese, and I'm just gonna sprinkle it over the top. And then we're gonna pop the lid back on, get the cheese a little bit melty, and serve it up. And voila! Time to get into these turkey meatballs with rice. So I'm gonna grab a couple of the meatballs, some of the rice. That spinach just nestled kind of perfectly down in. Let's give it a taste. Another delicious, fast, easy, inexpensive one-pot meal in the books. I love this meal because it's super lean, but has all of the incredibly flavorful components that I love. The richness of the mushrooms added to those turkey meatballs is perfect. Lemon and basil are running through every part of it. A little bit of the fatty creaminess from the cheese is very nice, so you can totally omit that if you like. And it's inexpensive, nutritious, and pretty fast. You can definitely have this one on the table in under an hour and probably closer to 30 minutes. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate it when you do. I hope this is one that you can add to your arsenal of quick and healthy protein-packed one-pot meals. If you make it, let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you liked this video, please give it a like. If you want to stick around, please subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you. And I look forward to seeing you here next time. Cheers!